Hi, this is Omar at Top 5 E-Bikes, and thanks for watching this video. Today what we're going to do is a little bit different from what we normally do, which is reviews or reviews of accessories, that sort of thing. Today what we're going to do is actually take a step back and go through the process in trying to decide which e-bike you would want to buy, or at least the process that I go through when trying to decide which e-bike I want to buy. Today what we're going to go through is my process in trying to decide which cargo bike I want to buy. I currently own a Yuba, which is a regular cargo bike, so not an e-bike, and I want to upgrade to an e-bike. And so we're going to go through that. I'm looking to spend around $2,000 for an e-bike or a cargo e-bike. I have two daughters, so that's, like carrying X amount of weight is important to me. And then also, can I put child seats on it are important to me. So what we'll do is we'll look at 4 different cargo bikes, and then we'll look at the specs of them, and I'll kind of walk you through what I usually look for in these spec-wise, what I would look for, and then which one of these e-bikes is actually of interest to me, and which one am I gonna want to buy at some point in the near future. So we're gonna look at the Rad Power Bikes RadWagon. We're gonna look at the Eunorau Max Cargo, the Blix Packa, and then the ROKiT eWagon, which is a newer e-bike, which actually still hasn't hit the market. So if you have any questions or comments, you can leave them on this video. You can also follow us on social media and send us any questions there. I should say that you should subscribe to our channel if you enjoy it, if you enjoy this type of video. Also, we'll have links in the description to all these different bikes. With some of them, we actually do have affiliate relationships. So if you were to buy one of these bikes, you could use one of our links, and that would support Top 5 e-bikes. So yeah, so without further ado, we'll get into the different e-bikes. So we'll start off with the RadWagon. This is probably the most popular cargo bike that you'll see out there. I currently own a Yuba, and whenever I'm riding it around town, a lot of people think that it's a RadWagon. By far, again, the most popular e-bike. They recently increased the price of this e-bike by $200. And so that'll definitely factor into our decision whether we end up buying this e-bike or not. They recently updated to the 4th version of this RadWagon, so there are some subtle changes relative to the previous version. And again, this is by far the most popular cargo bike that you'll see out in the market today. The next e-bike we're going to look at is the Eunorau Max Cargo e-bike. If you're not aware, Eunorau is actually they've been around for a long time. You might not know this brand, but they've actually been selling their bikes for a long time. And a lot of shops, small bike shops around the US will actually sell their bikes. So they'll white label them. So you probably seen their bikes at other shops, but you didn't know it was Eunorau. Recently I saw that Kyle at Bolton Bikes mentioned that he's been buying supplies from them for a while, and in fact his Hercules cargo bike is a white labeled mid-drive cargo bike that Eunorau sells. The third one we're going to look at is the Blix Packa, which is a company out of Santa Cruz, California, so it's a US based company. Pretty innovative, I think, some of the stuff that this brand is doing. I personally was first attracted to this e-bike because of the color. So the blue color of it really attracted me to this e-bike. It has really good specs, and yeah, definitely a really good option if you're looking at a cargo bike, and one that you should be considering. So we'll look at some of the specs and how this one compares to the other 2 options that we mentioned earlier. All right, and the 4th option is kind of a wild card. So it's a company that just launched, or at least they announced that they're going to start selling e-bikes in the US, which is ROKiT, and they have this eWagon, which looks a lot like the Eunorau bike. In fact, it almost looks exactly like the Eunorau bike. So I wouldn't be shocked if this is a white labeled Eunorau bike that they're providing for ROKiT. I think the one thing that's really interesting about this brand is that it's a really big company that's going to start selling e-bikes. And then also you can get this at a really cheap price because it's an introductory price. So not much information on this one, but we'll throw it in there as an option that you potentially could be looking at. All right, so what are we looking at? We're looking at a bunch of data points. This is what I like to do when I'm looking at bikes. So when I'm comparing bikes, I like to, in a spreadsheet, just pull in all the main data points and then look at them side by side, so I can compare. I mean, is this a good buy for me? Is it not? What am I getting extra or less, giving up potentially, if I'm going with a more affordable option? So you can see here that we have price, we have range, I have speed, I have the type of motor, the battery size, shifter, derailleur. I have the type of brakes, weight, and max load. So there are definitely other options that you could be looking at, and there's more details that you can dive into in each of these specific factors. Like, I'll give you an example. If you're looking at the motor, maybe the type of motor matters to you. Is it a Bafang versus, I don't know, some other brand? If it's the battery, is it a well-known battery? What type of cells are they? That sort of thing. So aside from the size of the battery, there are some other factors that could matter. And even the shifters and the derailleurs, a lot of times you'll read about a specific type of Shimano derailleur or shifter, and there are several iterations of that specific type. So Shimano Serra, there's different types of Shimano Serra. So there are more data points. These are the ones that I look at least when I'm starting to kind of sift through what type of e-bike I'm gonna buy. And let's go through this. So if you look at it, I have the RadWagon first listed there, and then I have the Eunorau, the Packa, which is a Blix Packa, and then I have the ROKiT at the end. So I think the main thing that stands out about these e-bikes is that, or at least this category of e-bikes, is when we look at the shifters and the derailleurs, they're all either a Serra or Altus. So you pretty much see that across the board. There is the Eunorau one, which has one is the shifter's Altus and then the derailleur is a Serra, but for the most part you see that it's all a Serra derailleurs. The brakes are all the same, so it's 180 millimeter mechanical brakes across the board, so you don't actually see hydraulic brakes in this particular category in this price point. So that I would say is a wash. And then you start looking at the battery. So there's definitely a difference in the battery sizes. At least in its base price, the RadWagon has the larger battery. So you see it close to 700 watt hours, whereas you look at the Eunorau and the Packa, and those are 560 for the Eunorau, 557 for the Eunorau, and then 500 or so for the Packa. Motor-wise, you're looking at the same. There was a change in the newest RadWagon in terms of the type of 700 watt motor that they have, but you notice that they're all hub motors across the board, at least in this price category. And then when you get to speed, it's the same speed across the board. Again, range, which is tied to the battery size. You kind of see that there's a RadWagon where you can get a little bit more versus the Eunorau and the Packa. But again, you have a difference in $300 in the base price of these e-bikes. So that definitely, could be a factor for some consumers, where if you're looking on the lower end, then you could, if you're looking to spend under 2,000, then you, or closer to 1,500, then you should definitely go with the Eunorau or the Packa. And there are additional factors that you should consider, and I'm going to get to those here in my next spreadsheet that I'm going to share with you. One other point that one other factor that could be important for you is payload. So the max amount of weight that each of these bikes can actually or should be loaded onto each of the cargo bikes. And you notice that there's a difference in the max payload for these different e-bikes. And interestingly, the Rad bike is actually the one that has the lowest amount, so it's 350 pounds. The one that has the most, this wasn't verified on the Eunorau website, but there was a review where I saw that they listed 440 pounds. My guess is it's probably like 400. The Packa is also 400. So you get additional weight load capacity with the Packa and the Eunorau bike. So, I mean, probably not a big deal, but a few months ago I weighed 250 pounds, 60 almost. If I would have gotten a RadWagon, I would have been down to 90 pounds payload to actually be riding in terms of like what they recommend or what the manufacturer recommends. And you figure, like, for example, the Yep Maxis are each 7 pounds, I think, or 7 to 10 pounds. So you're carrying another 20 if you're carrying 2 of those. Then now that leaves you down to 70 pounds. So you could see how the max capacity could matter. And again, you have these options with these other bikes, which you'll actually be able to carry more weight on the frame of the bike. So just something else to consider. I also have the weight of the bike listed on my spreadsheet. It's not really that much of a difference between these different bikes. I mean, the RadWagon weighs a few pounds more than the Packa. We're not talking about 10, 20% more. We're talking about a few pounds, which is probably 5% or so. So I did want to mention those other points as well. All right, so now we got what I would call the punchline in terms of looking at all these data points for these bikes. I actually removed the ROKiT eWagon because it's not out yet. There are some missing data points there. So TBD on that one. If I was doing this 6 months from now, I would probably include it, but today there's just not enough information about this one. But this final sheet that you're looking at, or the spreadsheet, you have price, the base price. You have an extra battery because that is an option. And I think if I was buying, or when I do buy one of these cargo bikes, I'm going to get an extra battery. So I'm going to include that in there. I'm also going to include the caboose or monkey bars and the front basket because that's also something that I think I would get. That's something that I'm going to get. And I think most people end up getting that. And I say this based on comments that I've been seeing on social media. I'm going to have the total on there, and then if there are any coupons. So those are the main points. Considering that for the most part, spec-wise, when we're talking about components, except for the battery, everything is pretty much the same. So same type of brakes, same type of derailleurs, shifters, motors, except for there's a slight change in the RadWagon. But for the most part, these are the same. Payloads are a little bit different. You can get more with the Packa, but let's just say for the sake of argument here that you are getting the same components. Now, when you add the extra battery, and you add the component or the accessories, these are the prices that you see. So it's pretty much the same price for the Packa, the Eunorau, and the RadWagon, except that the Eunorau and the Packa have double batteries. So now you can go 70 miles for the same price. So I think that's kind of the kicker. That's like the super important thing for me. And that's what's gonna, that's what's making me lean towards the Packa and the Eunorau. I mean, if this was House Hunters and I was eliminating one of these, I would be eliminating the RadWagon right now. Just because for the same amount of money, I can get a way bigger battery. Also, and this is not something, I mean, I mentioned this earlier, you can't even get the caboose right now or the front basket. So if you were getting a RadWagon, you'd have to DIY adding seats or buy some seats that weren't meant for a RadWagon to add them to your bike, or just wait it out. So you can't even get that stuff. But you could see the variance in the prices of the accessories kind of across these different brands. With the Packa, it's a little bit more expensive. Eunorau definitely has the cheapest. But again, once you add the second battery to the Eunorau and the Packa, the price is pretty much the same. And Top 5 ebikes has a coupon for Eunorau. So if you were to use the coupon code Top 5 ebikes, you can get 5% off of any Eunorau bike. So if you applied that coupon, you could actually get the Eunorau for $2,089 to under $2,100 for a double battery. You could, and by the way, these include free shipping across the board. So yeah, I think, again, I would eliminate the RadWagon for now. I think for me personally, what I'm trying to decide is between the Eunorau and the Packa. So that's sort of the process that's the process that I go through when trying to decide. If you enjoyed this review, please subscribe to our channel, leave us a comment, visit us at top5ebikes.com or some of our social media accounts. Thank you.